This is a short recording on classification, kind of the introduction to how we classify animals and other organisms. Currently we have a three-domain system. A domain is a large group of organisms, and so every organism will fit into one of these three domains, which I'll get to in a moment. But as we get more and more specific to an organism, we go from domains down to the kingdom, down to phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And so you'll see examples of these different groups as we get more and more specific towards a specific type of species. So they're both in the domain called eukarya, or eukaryotes, which means they're multicellular. They're in the animal kingdom. They're part of the chordata phylum, which basically means they have a backbone. They're in the mammal class, which essentially means they give live birth. They're part of the carnivores order. They both eat meat as their primary source of food. Canidae is the family for these two. And then Canis is the genus, and then finally the species. So canines being the family, Canis being a specific type of genus within that family. So basically, the coyote and gray wolf are very similar to each other. The only difference is that their species name, the gray wolf being Lupus, and the coyote being latrans, as the two major fundamental differences. By the genus species naming system, it's called binomial nomenclature. And so a lot of times you'll see these two names named or together with the organisms there. So here's our three-domain system. We have the first one, which is called the bacteria. So most bacterial organisms live there. There's a middle one called archaea, which is an extreme type of bacteria. They live in hot springs and the bottom of the ocean and really cold areas. And then we have the eukarya, which we spend most of our time talking about because we have the animals, we have the plants, and other multicellular organisms. This is a phylogenetic tree, what you can see in the background. And I apologize for the text here, but if you can read through this, a phylogenetic tree shows how related organisms are to each other. And so there's a couple things. I think I'll just skip to the slide. This is an example of a phylogenetic tree where these terms that are on the tree are what's called a derived trait of the organism. So for example, the hagfish way over here on the left side is a very simple organism. It's called the outgroup. It's often the most different of the organisms on the tree that we're looking at. The hagfish, though, is similar to the perch in that they both have a common ancestor back at the point here, which is called a node. Now, the perch and the salamander will have a common ancestor here. So the perch, the salamander, and the chimp, even here, they all have their common ancestor back at this point where this blue dot is, at that node. So the nodes, or the places where the lines intersect, show a common ancestor. What those common ancestors look like can be very unknown. Some of them are thousands of years old, some of them can be much older than that. And again, the derived traits are located on places on the cladogram or phylogenetic tree, sometimes this is called. So, for example, feathers is here by the pigeon because the pigeon developed feathers as a way for it to travel, to move with its wings. So, whereas the mouse and the chimp don't have that as one of the examples. Here is a sample you have in your notes. What I'd like you to do right now is take a moment, pause the video, and you're going to end up writing in one of the letters from on the tree into the spaces here where they belong. So where did these traits here become derived in the phylogenetic tree as you see here? So I'm going to zoom it out there just so you can see. So if you would pause it now, answer those questions. Okay, so the location of where wings. So wings would be right here at letter F. 6 legs was one that was developed at letter C. Segmented body is way back at letter A. A double set of wings should be here at H. Jumping legs should be at E. Crushing mouth parts is letter D, the ant. Legs is at letter B. And the curly antenna is at actually letter H, sorry. So the double set of wings is letter G. So that was my mistake. Here's another example that you can go through and produce your own. So what you want to do is start with selecting the boxes that these organisms have for traits. So I'm doing that right now. And then produce your own phylogenetic tree from those. And then the last part here, we will talk about mostly anatomy in terms of the trees, but we also use DNA and genetic letters, and you'll see that as we progress through this unit. There's no quiz for this. This only has your video notes guide for the class on it.